They parted ways. We cried with her. Amy stood at Ty's grave, the wind in her hair and heartbreak in her eyes. It was like the end. But now, against all odds, he is back. And the moment he returns, everything changes. It's impossible to talk about Ty Borden without remembering the heartbreak of season 14. That opening episode, the one that shattered the hearts of millions, showed us the unimaginable. Ty, the sturdy, dependable, and kind man who had been by Amy's side since they were teenagers, fell to the ground in the snow, a blood clot, sudden, silent, and final. We all watched in disbelief. He had survived so much: wolves, near-death experiences, fights for his family, and even prison. But this time, there was no warning, no final goodbye, merely death's quiet stillness. Amy knelt beside him, her tears mixing with the falling snow. That scene broke something in us, the fans, because it felt real. It wasn't just another character exit, it was the loss of someone who had grown with us for over a decade. Ty and Amy were more than just fictitious characters. They were a symbol of growth, healing, and enduring love. From the first moment Ty arrived at Heartland as a troubled teen, we saw his transformation. He was not flawless, he made mistakes. However, he loved Amy with all of his heart, and she reciprocated her love for him in a steady, quiet way that lasts. They built a life, a family, and a future together. It then vanished in a split second. After Ty's death, the world of Heartland changed. The ranch seemed less full. The light in Amy's eyes dimmed. She had to face a life she never imagined. Raising Lindy alone, continuing her work without her partner, and trying to move forward while still drowning in grief. And we felt every second of it. Because Heartland doesn't just show us drama. It shows us real human pain and strength. But even through the sorrow, there were moments of hope. Amy found her way back to the horses. She kept Ty's memory alive for Lindy. She smiled again, though it never reached the same part of her soul. And we, the fans, never stopped hoping, wishing for a return in some way. Not because we expected a miracle, but because stories like this, ones about love that goes beyond death, always leave space for something more. A fantasy, an image, a stench from the past. And that's why Season 19, Episode 1, shook the fandom to its core. No one anticipated seeing him again. And yet, there he was. Not as a flashback. Not as a recollection, however present. Real. And looking at Amy like he never left. The morning at Heartland felt different, quieter, softer, like the world was holding its breath. The light came through the windows a little warmer, and the horses seemed to stand still for just a moment longer. There was no music playing, no words being spoken. Only Amy, her boots gently echoing against the wooden floor as she moves through the familiar barn. It looked like an ordinary day, but nothing about this day was ordinary. Even before anything happened, you could see it in her eyes. Amy wasn't distracted. She wasn't busy. She was listening, not with her ears, but with her heart. She had a stillness about her, like a pause just before something big changes forever. Her body seemed to know something her mind hadn't yet, that someone was close, someone she hadn't seen in years, someone she lost. She went about her chores, brushing a horse that wouldn't settle, feeding another that kept looking toward the tree line. Even the animals could feel it. That's the magic of Heartland, the way the horses always know before we do. One of them let out a soft, alert whine that was neither scared nor agitated. Amy looked up, slowly, the kind of movement that says, "Did I just imagine something?" However, nothing was there. Not yet. And then she found it. A photo. One of those small things you forget you kept until it suddenly shows up again. A picture of Ty and Lindy, taken on one of those golden afternoons when everything still felt whole. She picked it up slowly, like touching it too fast might break the moment. Her thumb brushed over Ty's face. You could tell she hadn't seen this picture in a long time. Her chest tightened. A flicker passed across her face. Not pain exactly, but something more fragile. Longing. The camera didn't need to zoom in. You could feel it from across the room. This wasn't just another quiet morning. This was the kind of morning where time folds in on itself, where memory and presence blur. The wind's whisper followed. The barn doors made a slight creak. A breeze moved through the stable, brushing her hair back gently, insufficient to function as weather, sufficient to make one believe that someone was present. She quickly turned around, but once more, nothing. But that's how it always begins in stories like this. Not with fireworks, not with noise, but with small things. The gentle movement of air, the sudden recall of an individual's scent. The stillness of a moment that feels like the past and the present are holding hands. Amy remained motionless, unconcerned but not afraid. That was the moment we all felt it. The buildup wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It whispered. It came slowly, patiently, and gently, just like Ty did every time he wanted to say something important or calm a wild horse. The show didn't need to tell us anything. It showed us. It trusted us to feel what Amy was feeling. And we did. We've all, in our hearts, experienced that moment. That breath where we're not sure if the past is gone or just waiting around the corner. Some moments don't happen in time. They happen in memory, in feeling, in the space between two heartbeats. It wasn't thunder. There was no roar. It was something much quieter, yet somehow louder than anything else. A single action. A crunch of gravel beneath worn boots. All it required was that. As if her soul had heard something before her. Ears did. Amy turned slightly. There he was. Ty. No music. No camera trick. Only him. Standing at the trail's edge, where golden sunlight cuts through the trees. He wasn't glowing. He wasn't ghostly. He appeared just as we remembered. Him. Flannel shirt, soft eyes, hands tucked loosely into his jacket pockets. Like he'd never left. It appeared as though he had just arrived home from a ride. Amy didn't speak. She was unable. Her lips parted, just a little, but no sound came out. Her eyes, wide, full of disbelief, scanned his face like she was trying to memorize him all over again. She had, however, never forgotten. He wasn't even an inch, not one breath, not one line around his smile. He didn't move right away. Neither did she. That's what made the moment real. Because when someone you've lost walks back into your life, whether in a dream or a memory or something deeper, you don't rush to them. You freeze. You feel. Your heart is right, but every nerve in your body wants to believe. Or it thinks. It does. And then he smiled. It wasn't big. It wasn't for the cameras. When you are completely familiar with someone, you smile like that. The kind that says, "I've missed you every day since I left." Still, Amy didn't speak. However, she began to cry uninvited, slowly and unwillingly. The kind that only come from wounds that never truly healed. And then, like gravity finally remembered her feet moved. 1 step, 2. She didn't run. She didn't shout his name. That wasn't their kind of love. Their love was steady, quiet, and as deep as the ranch's roots. Fearing that he would vanish if she blinked, she walked slowly toward him. But he didn't. He stayed. "Is it really you?" she whispered, barely audible, like the wind might steal the words before they reached him. Ty nodded, just once. Nothing extraordinary, nothing Hollywood, but enough. And in that moment, time collapsed. They were just inches apart. Without touching. No, not yet. There was too much between them, grief, memory, longing. But their eyes spoke a language no one else could hear. The kind of conversation that happens without words, where every breath means "I still love you." He lifted a hand, slowly, and brushed a single tear from her cheek. Her eyes were shut. It wasn't a dream. Or if it was the kind that leaves fingerprints on your heart. This wasn't just pranking the fans. Callbacks don't come cheap. It was more substantial. Something spiritual. It might not have been Ty's actual physical return. Maybe it was Amy's mind finally allowing herself to see him again, to let go, or to hold on, Heartland doesn't always give you answers. It gives you truth. And there was a lot of it in this scene. No music swelled. There isn't a big fade. Just the sound of horses rustling in the distance and wind moving through the trees. Amy leaned into him, gently, resting her forehead against his. They came back to life in that stillness, not only as characters but also as something timeless. A sensation, a memory, a love story that never really ended. He then took a step back, arriving just as gently as he had come. When Amy opened her eyes, he had vanished. But the peace on her face was something we hadn't seen in years. Not the tranquility of closure. No, not yet. However, the serenity of connection. A reminder that love, real love, doesn't need to stay to be felt. It absolutely must have been. When Ty disappeared from that trail just as softly as he had arrived, Amy didn't fall to her knees. She didn't scream. She did not pursue the void where he had stood. She exhaled. For the first time in years, she took a breath that wasn't, weighed down by the ache of loss. It wasn't relief. It wasn't confusion. It was something quieter, more personal. A breath that felt like forgiveness. For the past. For fate. Maybe even for herself. We didn't need narration to understand what Amy was feeling. Her eyes, always her most powerful tool, told the entire story. They had softened at this point, not because the pain was gone, but because for a few moments she had been given back something precious, something no one ever expected. Presence. The Amy who returned to the barn was not the same Amy who had left just a few seconds earlier. Her shoulders were still heavy, but they were not as heavy. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. She moved as if she had touched something holy, like someone who'd seen proof that love, real love, never truly leaves us. It simply waits for the right moment to occur once more. She did not immediately speak with anyone. She didn't explain. There was no explanation. Because how do you convey a moment that is not associated with this world through words? How do you tell someone that you just saw the love of your life? And he smiled at you like no time had passed at all? Later that evening, she sat on the porch, not to weep, just remembering. Lindy's old baby blanket, which Ty used to carry around the ranch when Lindy wouldn't stop crying, was where her hand rested. Amy smiled for the first time when she touched it too. Not a forced smile, a full one. The kind that says, I miss you, but I'm okay. That's how Heartland does romance. It's not grand. It is not audible. It's found in small things, quiet gestures, warm looks, shared silences. Candles and love songs weren't necessary for this scene. It had something better, history, memory, soul. And there was romance in that moment, so much of it. Not the kind we're used to on television, but the kind that lingers in your bones, the kind where someone looks at you across time and space and says, I still see you. I never stopped. Amy wasn't seeing a ghost. She wasn't dreaming, in the usual way. She was experiencing everything she had suppressed for years. That's the beauty of grief. It doesn't just break you. Sometimes it protects you from feeling too much, too fast. And in that moment, it finally stepped aside. What made it even more powerful was what didn't happen. There was no dramatic breakdown. There was no collapse. Because Amy has never been a woman of outbursts. She's a woman of endurance. She holds her heart like reins, firm, steady, but never cold. And when she's ready, she loosens her grip. She is now loosening it. There's healing in this episode, but not the kind that shouts, I've moved on. It whispers, I'm still moving. And maybe Ty's return was just a push in that direction, a blessing, a message. Whatever you believe, it gave Amy something she hadn't had in a long time, the freedom to feel him again without breaking. As the sun set behind the ranch and the screen faded to black, we were left not with answers, but with something far more valuable. Hope. Not that Ty will always be back, but that his love still is. And for Amy Fleming, that's enough. Every return is not always about returning. Sometimes it's about letting go. What we witnessed in Heartland Season 19, Episode 1 wasn't just Ty's return. It was Amy's quiet awakening. Her heart, once frozen in time, finally stepped out of winter. I don't like summer, not even spring, but into something new, a space between the seasons where grief and love can exist side by side. This is what made this scene so real and haunting. It wasn't about resurrection. It was about recognition. Ty's return and stay were not necessary for Amy. She needed to remember what it felt like to be loved by him, truly, deeply, without the weight of pain on her shoulders. This wasn't just for Amy. This moment was for every person who has ever stood in silence, missing someone so much they could barely speak their name. It was for those who have walked through their days smiling on the outside, but hollow underneath. It was for those who were still seeking peace. Heartland gave us that peace, for just a moment, and that's why it matters. Grief was not cheated by the writers. They didn't undo years of emotional growth. Instead, they made it more complex. They gave us what so few shows are brave enough to give, a love story that continues even after death. A love story that has no need for the other person to be there. This is the real heart of Heartland. It's not about horses, or ranches, or even romance in the way we usually define it. It's about the kind of emotional truth that cuts quietly and deeply. It's about how people change you, how they shape your soul, and how even after they're gone, they never truly leave. And for longtime fans, Ty's appearance felt like a gift, not from the writers, but the narrative itself. A reward for staying, for believing, for grieving alongside Amy and holding her through the silence. You see, this wasn't a dream in the way we often use the word. This was memory coming alive, spirit reaching through the cracks in reality. This was love refusing to fade. Ty wasn't coming back to life when he smiled at Amy and touched her cheek. He was reminding her, and us, that the strongest loves are the ones that keep living in the spaces we can't see. And perhaps this moment wasn't about Ty at all. Perhaps it was about Amy, about how far she's come, about how brave it is to keep waking up, keep showing up, and keep loving, even when the person you love is no longer there. Maybe this was her heart's way of saying, I'm ready to carry this love forward, not just wear it like armor. As the episode ends and the screen fades, we're not left sobbing. We remain still, quiet, reflective. And that's the brilliance of this scene. Because in the end, the most powerful stories aren't the ones that make you cry the hardest. They're the ones that stay with you in the quiet after. So, if you're still thinking about Amy's single tear, Ty's gaze on her as if nothing had happened, or the gentle breeze that carried him away once more, this is because not all stories end. They echo.